Have you ever wished that you had a master floral designer that you could have stand beside you step by step and teach you the process of floral design? My name is Kirby Holt. I'm a master floral designer with more than 25 years of experience in the business, and I want to show you step by step how to create beautiful floral designs with the kits from myfloraldesign.com. I hope you enjoy this video and this series. Today I have a beautiful arrangement for you that is a very unique style. It starts with a metal canoe-shaped container, and we're going to put orchids in it. So it really reminds me of Hawaii, because I think of the Hawaiians and their outrigger canoes and orchids growing everywhere. So when I look at this finished product, it just makes me feel like a paradise I want to visit again. So I'm going to start with this stem of Cymbidium orchids, and I need to harvest just a couple of these blooms. There are so many growing tight right in there, and it's important that you notice exactly which blooms I'm cutting out. And on the right side of the stem, I'm going to take the second bloom and I'm taking it right up next to the stem of the orchid, and then I'm going to turn it, and right up here at the second from the top on the left side, I'm going to take that. So I've been able to harvest two of those orchids out that I can use in basing my design, but I will not miss them so much when I am putting this arrangement together. Now what I want to do is take my knife, and I'm just going to trim away some of this plastic that creates the bottom stem of the stem. And you can see it's a little bit tough to cut. It's thick, but you can just work on trimming that. Might want a sharper knife than I have here today. There we go. There we go. Maybe don't cut in too deep. I kind of went too deep to begin with. If you start shallow, you can trim away some of that plastic, because what we want to do is be able to bend a hairpin, or just a real tight curve, into the end of this, and that will lock this orchid in and keep it from swiveling it around. As it is put in place, it'll stay where we put it. So I'm going to just bend that little hairpin turn, and I'll take my wire cutter and just hold it loosely and use it to bend the wire, and that way I don't have to use my hand to do that. And I want to make sure that the orchid is facing out. I'm going to put just a little bit of glue on the end of this, and you could take your hot glue gun and just put a little dab of glue right on the tip of that hairpin, and when you begin to press that into the container, you take your thumb and just kind of brace it against the edge so that you're holding that styrofoam in, and then that will keep it from popping loose on you. If it should pop loose, just take your hot glue and glue it back in there. It's not going to be a real big deal to reattach that and get it where it needs to be. Now I'm just real gently bending this orchid so that it lays over the top of the canoe and off to one side. And really what we're doing here is just getting a real pretty flow. I'm going to just take my hand and kind of twist that a little bit, and because I just want the orchid just to lay across and flow in that direction there. And then these two orchids that I've trimmed off of the stem, I'm going to cut just a little bit of that off, just a little tip off, maybe ½ an inch, because these I'm not going to try to anchor down tight into that styrofoam. What I want to do is just get some glue on them, and you can just get a nice little wad of glue, pull the moss to the side, and just lay that in and just glue it right on top of the styrofoam. Instead of trying to go into the styrofoam, we're just going to glue that stem right to the styrofoam. And then I'm going to take the second one and do the same thing, just put a little bit of glue. You can see I've actually wadded up a pretty good amount of glue there. And then I'm going to pull that moss back and just lay that right on top of the styrofoam. I'll let you see here. See how we've just really created an anchor for this long stem of orchids at the base by putting a couple of those orchids in. Now what I want to do is take my branches, and I'm going to create a little bit of an overarch with these branches, and I'm going to come right into the very, very tip of that canoe and push that in. And I want these to kind of override. I want to get down to the orchid with it. I want to let them create another level of line that arches above the orchid. Going to do one more of those. And this one I'm going to bring in on this side of this orchid and do the same thing. And by bringing it out, it will create another level instead of putting them too close together. You can see I'm just using my hands and working those little branches to create curve and a little bit of naturalness to that line. Now this stem is sitting a little far to the front, so I'm just going to kind of bend that back. And in nature, nothing is perfectly straight. So when working with manufactured elements, you always want to get some twists and some bends put in, and it helps them look more natural, because in nature, nothing is perfect. Everything has a little bend or twist, even us. Okay? Although my grandchildren are just about perfect. All right, this leaf I'm going to use to create a little bit of an overarching effect. I'm going to put just a dab of glue there. Again, I'm going to push it in right next to that stem on the end, and then gently bend that so that it kind of overarches right in the center, maybe just a little bit to one side, but creates a little bit of a sheltering effect. And then this one I'm going to cut really short. I'm actually going to maybe just make that stem about as long as the bottom of the leaf. See, I've cut that so it's about level with the bottom. And then I'm going to trim just a little bit of that stem away so that that insertion will be easier to make. Because this I'm going to place in really tight in beneath these first orchids. All right. And then that creates just a little bit of basing underneath. It covers about half of the canoe. It would be, I love the canoe empty. If you wanted to put some potpourri or something, I think that would be fine. But I think it's beautiful just have the open canoe and just have the orchids sheltering that, and really using the canoe like a frame that lets the orchid rest on top of that. Now, for me, this is one of my favorite design styles. It has a little bit of an Asian flair to it, tropical flair with these tropical foliages and the Cymbidium orchid. But this would be a wonderful piece for a dining table, a breakfast table. It'd be great for a coffee table. There's just a credenza at an entrance with a pair of candlesticks flanking it. There's just a lot of ways that a piece like this could be used. And it also has great application for commercial space as well. Hope you've enjoyed this today. Visit us at myfloraldesign.com for more demonstrations. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I encourage you to browse the library of arrangements and videos on our website, myfloraldesign.com.